Well, I am
Recording is back.
Leslie Mastriani, the Executive Director of SCEDD, and thank you guys for joining us. We're really excited to talk about what we've accomplished, and I say we, not just SCEDD, but what we as a region have accomplished thus far in the world of broadband, and then just kind of give you a heads up and get your feedback, input, comments, questions on what we should look for moving forward. And then we want to touch on workforce development in regards to, or how it relates to broadband. And Tracy will be giving some more information on that in a few. But I want to take, the general housekeeping. We've never done one of these virtually before, so I can't use my old. Feel free to jump in and ask questions as they come up, but we do want to keep this as casual yet interactive as possible. So if you have a question, comment, just either raise your hand or throw it into chat and we'll address it. Tracy's going to keep her eye on that. And I want to introduce, before I kick it off to Paul, I want to introduce our staff who's with us today. Lisa Schlotterhausen is a what are you? Program manager, coordinator. She's our go-to for primarily in the Southeast Plains, which are the 6 counties to the east of Pueblo. And she's and also is involved in regional activities. So she's just the best and the bomb. If you ever have any questions, problems, she's your person. Tracy is our I almost said Tracy some more. She has been married more than a year now, but Tracy is our senior program manager, and she's been with SCEDD for some time. Tracy works primarily in our western counties. Yes, I had to get my directions straight, including Chaffee County, and also is involved in some regional initiatives and handles all of our social media and website, but don't judge her on the website. We're in the middle of a redo. So, and then Richard Chambers is our newest addition, and he is our broadband and special projects coordinator. And he will be helping to administer our capital projects funds that were awarded, and also will be instrumental in putting together any BEAD projects that we have moving forward. So with that, we have partnered. We've been together now for a couple of years.
Yeah, probably 2 years now.
Yeah, Ditesco out of Fort Collins has proven to be a very valuable part of our broadband team in providing expertise and guidance through our broadband process. So I'm going to turn it off to, or hand it over to Paul. He's going to talk about our CPF and BEAD initiatives. But again, any questions, feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat. So Paul, it's all yours.
Great, cool, thanks, Lizzie. So yeah, just a brief high-level agenda: talk CPF, talk BEAD, and then get into some workforce development. Before we dive into CPF, a little background on what SCEDD is. So the Southern Colorado Economic Development District is an entity created by the Department of Commerce in the 60s that kind of, you can see this black outline of the 13 counties that it encompasses. So it includes 4 different planning regions and kind of just it's made up of a board of representatives from each of these 13 counties. So SCEDD is responsible to the board of directors that's appointed by each of these counties. SCEDD's a nonprofit entity, so it's non-government nonprofit entity. And SCEDD kind of got into the broadband broadband game here Ditisco joined SCEDD to get into the broadband game in 2022, kind of in the winter of 2022. We started looking at broadband in the region, classify where it was good, where it was lacking, and then looked at overall infrastructure in the region. And in that report, we put all that information together in a report and published the broadband middle mile blueprint in May of 2023. That kind of identified areas of high need and made some project recommendations that we thought would have high impact in the region. And through that process of identifying projects, creating kind of a broadband group, a broadband project team, we were designated as broadband ready. The SCEDD was broadband ready by the Colorado Broadband Office, meaning that they recognized and acknowledged that we've been putting in the work on the broadband side and we're ready to apply for some grants. And so what SCEDD has been doing is continuously working with local municipalities and county leaders to look at projects that kind of span the whole region, more so than just the municipality or the county itself. So next slide here, the capital project fund. So this was the recent award announcement here in January. There's $113 million available for projects. It was very competitive at $643 million requested across all the 100 plus applications. And this map just shows the distribution of projects that were awarded through this process across the state. The different counties, tier 1 and tier 2 counties, are indicative of the match requirement. So purple counties, tier 1, were a 25% match, and then the gray counties were a 50% match. So I think all but one county in the SCEDD region was tier 1. The way SCEDD approached this broadband grant was through what we've called a request for partnership process, where SCEDD released a request for partnership as a formal bid on BidNet, where we requested internet service providers come to SCEDD with some project ideas, and then SCEDD would take its connections with government, municipal and county government, and then with SCEDD's expertise in grant administration, SCEDD would apply for the grant and manage the grant. The ISP would design, construct, build, own the infrastructure on the grant. So kind of adding another layer in the the pipeline between the government and the ISP, just as far as grant oversight and overall project identification and just assistance with the grant. So these are the 3 projects that were awarded to SCEDD. So we had one up north of Leadville in Lake County, one kind of off east of Pueblo, and then another in Bent and Otero counties. So I'll talk about the projects that SCEDD applied for, and then we'll talk about the projects that were awarded in Chaffee County. So these are the 7 projects that were identified and ultimately bid on by SCEDD. We partnered with 3 different ISPs in the region through our CPF request for partnership. We looked at projects in every county, and we knew that the grant program was going to be competitive. I don't know if we realized how competitive it was going to be, but we ultimately narrowed down on these 7 projects because we thought they would be very competitive as far as like eligibility goes. And then we, obviously sustainability was important for the internet service provider. So these are the 7 projects that we ultimately went in on, for a total project cost of $46 million, serving 4,500 locations. And then we were able to get $8.7 million matching funds. These 4 were awarded. Originally, it was just the 3 here, so Bent and Otero County, Pueblo County, north of Leadville. This Highway 12 west of Trinidad and Los Animas County was kind of a later addition. But overall, massive win for the region with almost $21 million in total project cost, bringing fiber to 1,800 locations. And then one thing I'm going to come back to a few times is this cost per location. So just take the total project cost, divide the number of eligible locations to get a cost per location. And that's a useful metric that we can apply to future projects and kind of get like a high level cost estimate for other projects going forward. So this was the projects that SCEDD, this is a big win for SCEDD, big win for the region, but nothing in Chaffee County. So I wanted to look at Chaffee County specifically, and then we'll talk about the big broadband projects that were awarded there. So this was the eligibility of locations prior to the CPF award announcement. And so the way it works is the FCC identifies locations that could be homes or businesses, anywhere that would subscribe to a broadband service. And then they, through various data sources, assign the service level to that location. So across all these maps, I'll show quite a few. Green is ineligible, meaning that that location is already served or something else is just ineligible for a grant. Orange is underserved, meaning the speeds available to that location are between greater than or equal to 25 megabit per second download, 3 upload, and less than 120. And then red is unserved, definition from the FCC as having speeds less than 25 download, 3 upload. So this was the picture of Chaffee County prior to the CPF award. So I would say almost everywhere outside of the Salida, Poncha Springs, Buena Vista areas were classified as eligible, underserved, and then areas in those closer to town are more or less all ineligible because they're served already. I think so. Here's the 2 projects that were awarded. So really big win, really, for Chaffee County through the CPF program. 2 big awards announced. So one, Visionary Broadband was awarded project locations around the Buena Vista area down into Nathrop. And then the other, Mavericks Broadband, awarded almost 1,500 eligible locations kind of in the Salida, Poncha Springs area down into the Swatch. I got some more maps here of these. So this is the Visionary Broadband project, kind of more zoomed in. That just shows the extent of their project. So the yellow boundary here is the municipal boundary of Buena Vista. So predominantly all their points are outside, in Chaffee County. For a total, this was a total award amount of 5.1 million. Visionary had 1.7 million in matching funds provided for a total project cost of almost 7 million and 1,300 locations. So big win for the area. They'll bring fiber to a lot of homes and businesses that really didn't have much of a better option. And feel free, Maisie, if you see anything you want to talk about, feel free, jump in, but click on to the next one here. So Mavericks Broadband down in Salida, Poncha Springs area. So they got awarded 12 million for these almost 1,500 eligible locations, predominantly in Chaffee County, but then going along the highway down in Swatch. Total project cost of almost 16.5 million. And that's, again, 100% fiber to those locations. So this is the same project, Mavericks Broadband, just more zoomed into Salida. So most of these points are outside of the municipalities in unincorporated Chaffee County. And so just taking that a little further, so the cost per location passed is a useful metric for framing expectations for future projects. So it's interesting if you look at the distribution of cost per location across the CPF program. From most expensive project in Larimer County was $30,000 per eligible location, down to the least expensive per location was $3,000. This $3,000 per location was in a mobile home park, so it is more dense than what is typical. The $30,000 was kind of a spread out rural rocky area, but an overall smaller project. So the overall project cost was fairly low compared to most projects that were awarded. The 2 in Chaffee County, Mavericks was around $11,000 per location, Visionary $5,300 per location. On average, project or total capital project fund wide around $8,300 per location. But the purpose of this is to take, okay, how many eligible locations do I have in my area or in my county? And what's a reasonable high-level cost estimate of what it would cost to bring fiber to those areas? So we'll apply this math to some BEAD eligibility here in the next slides. Is there any questions, I guess, before I move on? Any comments, questions, concerns? Nothing surprising there, I assume. Okay. Here's the capital project fund timeline. So January 3rd, awards were announced. There's a brief challenge period that's passed. Right now, the Colorado Broadband office and recipients are in contract negotiations. So That's going on between SCEDD and the CBO, and we assume that's going on, between all the other recipients. So that'll be kind of Q1 2024. Hopefully those contracts are locked down and awards are fully, inked, pen on paper, and the ISPs can start building. SCEDD, SCEDD's in the process of getting that completed. SCEDD's in the process also of kind of negotiating between SCEDD and the ISPs that will actually build and construct and own the infrastructure. So looking more like middle of 2024, Q3, Q4 of really starting permitting, construction, materials procurement. And once this contract is signed, so after this Q1 contract is signed, each awardee gets 2 years, after which the project needs to be done, and all the eligible locations that were in the project area would be able to sign up for fiber service. But really, there's a hard cutoff from the U.S. Treasury for any of this funding. Must be spent by December 31st, 2026. So you get 2 years after you sign the contract, but there may be a little bit more time after you sign the contract if the CBO sees, like, due to winter weather, we couldn't build for a lot of the award window. So they may give us a little bit more time in the summer of 2026, but we shall see on that. So that's pretty much what we've got here for Capital Project Fund. I don't want to minimize the impact that it had on Chaffee County. Huge win for the area. Bring fiber to a big majority of locations that were underserved. So yeah, great win for Chaffee County. So moving on, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, the BEAD program. This is the big one. $826 million to Colorado to get to the stated goal of 99% of homes and businesses connected to high-speed broadband. Timeline for this project, or this grant program, January 8th, an eligible location list was released by the CBO. After that was released, there was a challenge period where the public could download that data, look at it, see who was served and who wasn't served, submit any challenges on areas that they thought were not actually served but were reported as served, or submit challenges on areas where they were building. The CBO took that data, updated it with the CPF award data, and they should have, as of last week, submitted a final list of eligible locations to the NTIA for approval. And that's the line in the sand. After that's submitted to the NTIA and it's approved, that's the final eligibility list, kind of regardless of what happens in the availability data, so to speak, that constantly changes. So that information should have been submitted to the NTIA last week for approval. So right now we've got our SCEDD broadband roadshows where we're summarizing this information. Timeline here. So after these roadshows, and actually yesterday, SCEDD released another request for partnership solicitation on BidNet for the BEAD program, kind of same process as CPF, with a few updates on lessons learned, but more or less the same process where SCEDD's looking to partner with ISPs and assist in any way that they can to identify and propose and win broadband projects in the region. So that's on BidNet. Look that up. May 2024, the final list of eligible locations should be approved by the NTIA and then released by the CBO for all of us to download and look at, where we want to build or what's eligible. And so there's kind of a long process between now and when the application window actually opens. And I've got very vague dates on here. We've heard maybe sometime in August for the BEAD window to open. But yeah, that's kind of contingent on the NTIA's approval of the information that's been submitted to them by the CBO. Leslie, I see you've raised your hand.
I know I'm not usually that polite, but I thought I would this time. I really wanted to stress, through CPF, there were some lessons learned. This was new to all of us. And one of the things that that's listed in here are the SCEDD BEAD project presentations to municipalities and counties. And that was one thing I regret, or I wish we had done differently with CPF, is to keep the counties and the cities in those counties where we do have projects that we're looking at, to keep a good flow of communication back and forth. So I'd really like to, we'll be in, I don't want to say constant contact because that can be a little bit annoying too, to always have us in your face, but we'll share that information, share our progress, get your input, so that nothing will be a surprise, when we get down to, hey, we need a letter of support, or we need your financial support, or whatever the case may be. And those won't be done just by SCEDD. When we identify our ISP partners, they're equal partners in the process. Um, I say we're more back office stuff. With the grant applications and the administration and the behind the scenes movement, whereas the ISP most definitely, is an equal partner and is more front facing. So those information sessions, if you will be done both SCEDD staff, the broadband team, and the ISP that we're working with. So I just wanted to highlight that. That was a lesson learned, and we're going to take that lesson and improve on it and increase and improve communication moving forward.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll partner with ISPs, we'll identify projects, we'll come up with some project costs and scope, and then present that to the governments. So yeah. Another thing here I wanted to mention, well, actually, before I get into that, ideally, if the schedule stays the same, we'll be here January, February, March timeframe of 2025 with a bunch of BEAD awards announced, and a lot more work cut out for all of us. So, and another thing here, this quote I copied from the CBO's Volume 2 BEAD plan that they've submitted to the NTIA for approval. It stuck out to me, so I just want to include it and read it here. So, to ensure universal coverage, if no applications are received to serve a location or project area that is unserved, underserved, or both, the CBO will seek estimates from ISPs located near the location to extend internet access and will work with ISPs on a non-competitive grant agreement. So there are a lot of places in Colorado, and probably Chaffee County specifically, that are hard to get to for whatever reason, rock, Forest Service, permitting and ground conditions and weather conditions. They're not easy to get to, and even if you could get to them, they're going to be very expensive and hard to be sustainable. So the CBO has a lot of work cut out for them in getting through this grant process. But in addition to reviewing and awarding competitive bids, they're also going to look across the state for locations that are still unserved or underserved after this grant cycle's gone through, and they're going to work with ISPs in the areas on a non-competitive basis to award money to build projects to those locations. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know exactly how it will look, but say that could be big for the area, for very rural areas and hard to get to areas. So this map kind of comparison between CPF and BEAD eligibility. So the BEAD eligibility, like I was saying, was originally released in January. What we've done to create this map is we've added the CPF award points, and then a few of the other challenge points have been added to this. So kind of get a more current picture of BEAD eligibility. So as you can see, Chaffee County compared to like CPF to BEAD, there's a lot more green being ineligible in Chaffee County now than there was because of how big the CPF awards, the big project scope that they covered. So there's still quite a bit of BEAD eligibility in the county, but big chunks have been bitten off by the CPF program. This is kind of a breakdown of those eligible locations. So as you can see, the middle area kind of between Salida and Buena Vista, or between Nathrop and Salida, are really still eligible. Garfield's still eligible. There's some areas eligible north of Buena Vista. But yeah, big percentage change. I think it was like 65% ineligible on CPF. Now around 81% ineligible. So big win with CPF, but there's still more opportunity for BEAD. Yeah, so this I've got some maps that are kind of just zoomed in on areas throughout the county. So this is between Salida and Buena Vista. Some orange meaning underserved, red unserved locations that could be applied for. Area north of Buena Vista, and then yeah, we've got the counts of each location visible on the map. So 200-ish locations that are red there. And then yeah, southeast of Chaffee County. So I don't have a map that shows all of SCEDD, but Fremont County has a lot of unserved, probably certainly the highest percentage of unserved in the region. To connect Canyon City to Salida would be a big project, but it would that was a route identified in the broadband blueprint. It hasn't been done yet, but hopefully with the BEAD program, someone will be able to put together a project to get that done. That would be a big project, but a lot of opportunity kind of south of Chaffee County, going towards Canyon City. So taking the eligible locations for Chaffee County and multiplying it by cost per location from the CPF program, we can come up with like a high level cost estimate for the county. So 2,300 eligible locations in the county, $11,088 cost per location from the Mavericks awarded project, which is admittedly high, much higher than the Visionary awarded cost per location, a little bit higher than the average. But orders of magnitude here, 25.5 million total project cost for the county to get to 100% of all eligible locations. At a 75% grant match, that's 19.2 million in award, requiring 6.4 million in match. If you look at kind of an equitable distribution of the BEAD funding across the state, $826 million multiplied by 1.3% of eligible locations. So sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's 2,300 eligible locations in Chaffee County, 166,000 statewide. So 1.3%, 1.4% eligible locations in Chaffee County. Multiply that by the grant funding available, we come out with 11.5 million in grant funding, which is much lower than what you would estimate up here. And 3.8 million in match. So this is kind of, the purpose of this slide, it's really, the numbers change county to county, but it's the same concept county to county. There really isn't enough BEAD funding to go to bring fiber to every eligible location. The CBO's goal is 99% of homes and businesses. They also, as part of their yet to be approved BEAD plan in the volume 2, they're going to determine a extremely high cost per passing threshold, above which they would encourage or only accept projects that use like less expensive, like wireless solutions to serve those locations. But ideally we bring fiber to everywhere, but the CBO, we're all seeing the same math. There's not quite enough money to do that. So that's kind of in the CBO's roadmap on how they'll apportion funds for this project, is determine that extremely high cost per passing threshold, and then above which go for other options other than fiber. So still kind of a handful of big things yet to be determined for this program, but it's currently more or less on schedule. Hopefully we get more into it here in the summer, and get some projects identified, and then start applying kind of around mid to late summer. So I think, yeah, that's what we've got for BEAD. If there's any other questions, now's probably a good time. If not, I'll hand it over to Tracy and Richard to talk workforce development.
No questions. I don't see any. So thank you, Paul. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to share some information about our workforce development preparation and some exciting news that we received last week with regards to workforce development. So SCEDD is working closely with the Colorado Broadband Office. Workforce development obviously is a huge concern statewide. And as these projects come into play and grow, we know that there's going to be a need for additional workers. So we want to do everything we can to support that. You'll see some of the jobs there that we know there will be opportunities. SCEDD wants to help fill those roles throughout our region that we serve. So the CBO estimates that with BEAD, as that's awarded and as those projects move forward, there's going to be significant construction jobs and telecommunications jobs. So that'll be throughout the state. What SCEDD hopes to do, and we recently, last week, received a grant through the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. It's the Vital Careers funding. So we're very excited about that initiative, and this will focus on job training and placement throughout our region, because we know that that's such a huge need. So not necessarily four-year degrees, 2-year degrees, but these are going to be positions that require more technical training, certificate programs, things along those lines. So SCEDD's project will support these efforts, and we want to be able to train those employees, provide them with the training that they need, but also we are in need of employment partners, because we want to place these individuals in those fields you see listed there. So if you have any ideas, any fellow partners throughout the region, that we can, employment partners that we can partner with and hopefully place individuals into some of these roles, please don't ever hesitate to reach out, because that's what we want to be able to do with that funding that we've received. So let me think here. Oh, could you go to the next slide, Paul, please? Thank you. So working with the CBO office, they do have a workforce plan. What's interesting about that is there was a portion of that that's tied to the BEAD funding, but we've since learned that there's such a huge need and a huge commitment from our state that there will also be funding, additional funding sources looked at, so that we can support the workforce. So the workforce training, the workforce programming, those needs won't necessarily dip into that BEAD funding, so that'll go for those specific projects. But workforce is such a high priority for the entire state that they want to be able to support those types of programs. So we're very excited about that. We work really closely with the Colorado Broadband Office in all facets, but also with regards to workforce development and their plan. So SCEDD will play a strong role and be a strong partner with the CBO, so that we can make sure that we have the workers trained, we can provide support and funding for that training, and then ultimately with placement. So that places the workers, provides them with opportunity, but it also supports and drives economic development throughout our entire region. So it's very important to us to be able to support those efforts and bring those workers into gainful employment, and that supporting economic development throughout the region. Can you go to the next one, Paul? So looking at the projected increase in jobs and availability, I'll let Richard allude to this just a little bit. I don't know if there's any questions up to this point with some of the information that we've shared with regards to the funding we just received. We're still putting together our workforce plan. So once we have more of those details solidified, you'll be able to contact us, and we can share a little bit more information. But since we just received the funding, we're still putting a lot of the puzzle pieces together. So I don't know if there's any questions up to this point. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Richard.
Thank you, Tracy. So here we have the chart from the information given by the state demography office. They're projecting an increase by 4% in the jobs in the state, and by 2026, which, as we mentioned, was the peak year for these broadband funding programs, to actually be when they're doing the work. And the 143,000 jobs that are expected to be gained in Colorado would more than cover the amount that was projected to be needed for these programs, but that's jobs overall, and there's obviously going to be a lot more types of jobs and needs. So there still is a need for workforce development, and as Tracy said, in addition to BEAD, they're going to be doing other things, and SCEDD will be working on doing, in addition to what we have now, we're going after other ideas too. So regarding telecommunications and construction jobs, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the next slide shows just what all is included in that. It's things you would associate with the tech industry, like software, but a lot of things that are just construction, painters, carpenters, people to find locations and surveying on the ground. So if we can go back to the previous slide, we want to be able to find local workers for these things if possible. So even if that increase of 143,000 jobs in the state covers all the needed construction, we want them to be from local companies. And right now, Chaffee County is doing pretty well in terms of the percentage that is in construction. So I saw that according to the state demography office, about 9.4% of workers in Chaffee County are in the construction field, which is more than the state, which is 7.4% in construction. So, but even then, that's a percentage. So with a small population, it's the number like Chaffee County's population that could be kind of skewed based on whatever else is going on and what the needs are back then. So we still need a lot of workforce development. And we can go to the next slide. Again, these are all different types of jobs. So as Tracy said, these aren't always going to be the types of jobs that need a 4-year college degree. Some of them are, you just have to get certificates in these things to be part of this. So we want to see more of that with local companies, and that reminds me of, in addition to workforce development, where SCEDD is doing a lot of business development. We have some small business development ideas, including some upcoming business resource fairs for businesses to find ways of growing so they can become the businesses that we would go to for working on these projects. And then we're at the end of the presentation. Does anyone have any questions about workforce or anything else?
You guys are the bomb. Thank you. Well, hopefully you guys learned something new, or at least have an idea of where we're headed. It's really exciting for the country, state of Colorado, but most definitely for our region, and whatever we can do to enhance broadband coverage, and to make that as efficient and effective as possible and as affordable as possible as well. You know, we're here to help. So if you have any ideas, any comments, you're certainly not, you know, it's not a speak now or forever hold your peace. Our doors, emails, phones are always available to you guys. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to shoot them our way. And I thank you so much for taking your time to hear us. And that's all I have. So unless you know, if there's any other questions, throw them out there. Otherwise, Richard will send the slide deck out this afternoon, particularly those maps, so you can look at them a little bit closer. And if questions do pop up when you're looking them over, just let us know. So we'll keep you updated.
And we also are recording the full video too.
So great. Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thank you.
Maisie, we hope to hear from you.
Thanks. Yeah, it was great to attend the webinar, and thanks for putting it on and kind of giving us a rundown of what you guys are up to.
Sounds good. All right, we'll talk later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Is everyone? It's just us?